Hello, I'm Dr. Srinivas, medical gastroenterologist from NN Gastroenterology Center and Manipal Hospitals, Bangalore. Greetings from both the institutes. Today, I want to say a few words about fatty liver. I think all of us understand that we're going through unprecedented times for this pandemic of corona viral infection. Similarly, what's actually happening in the field of liver disease and cirrhosis is there's one cause which is growing exponentially all over the world. The commonest cause of this liver damage, like what we call as cirrhosis of liver, used to be alcohol, chronic hepatitis B, chronic hepatitis C, and then it used to be certain metabolic causes like Wilson's disease and fatty liver. But what has happened in the last decade, especially in the Western countries, is alcohol has remained stable. It's the number of patients because of alcoholic liver disease has remained constant. Hepatitis B is not very common in the West, it is common in India. And hepatitis C, since we have a cure now, the number of patients requiring liver transplantation in the Western countries has come down because of hepatitis C. But on the contrary, what has happened is there's a new, I won't say new entity, it's a entity called non-alcoholic fatty liver, which has tremendously grown in number, especially in the Western countries. And don't get me wrong, we are no way behind the West. Previously, about 2 decades back, we used to think there are certain Indian diseases and certain Western diseases. But Indian diseases we kept it, and unfortunately, we are catching up with the West in so-called Western diseases, whether it is inflammatory bowel disease or non-alcoholic fatty liver. So let's come to this term called as fatty liver. First, let's understand what is liver. Liver is a solid organ which is situated below the right lung in the abdominal cavity next to the stomach. It weighs about 1.5 kgs. What is its importance? It is important, it's got synthetic functions and it has got excretory functions. It synthesizes all the blood clotting factors, it synthesizes important proteins, especially the albumin, and it excretes a lot of waste products, metabolism of all drugs. It is responsible for all these factors. Then when do we call it as fatty liver? If about 5% of the liver cells show significant fat accumulation, we call it as fatty liver. Again, this fatty liver can be because of alcohol, or it could be, as the term initially I described, as non-alcoholic fatty liver. So when do we attribute it to alcohol and when do we attribute it to non-alcoholic fatty liver? If the intake of alcohol is less than 30 grams per day in a male and less than 20 grams per day in a female, it is called as non-alcoholic fatty liver. Again, presently it has been divided. Previous term was non-alcoholic fatty liver. The newest term is metabolic associated fatty liver disease. Again, here we classify it as metabolic associated fatty liver disease A and N. A is patient does take alcohol, but not in the amount which is required to classify it as alcoholic fatty liver disease. That is, it takes less than 30 grams per day if it's a man and about less than 20 grams per day if it's a woman. So that is fatty liver disease. Who are the patients who get this fatty liver disease? It's very common in obesity, in diabetics patients, and patients who have some insulin resistance. About 75% of the fatty liver disease patients have diabetes. Majority, even about 80 to 85%, are obese. But here again, it's important to remember that there is a term called as lean NASH. Means you can see that patient is lean but he's got fatty liver disease. Okay. And again, there are two terms very important which we should understand. That is, one is simple fatty liver, and second thing is NASH. NASH is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. Why is it important? If it is simple fatty liver, at present at least we believe it is benign, although it can progress to liver disease. Most important is when there is inflammation, that is called steatohepatitis, where there is already inflammation in the liver. this can progress to cirrhosis. How fast does it happen? See, about 25% of the patients with fatty liver do progress to NASH over 7 to 8 years. Similarly, again 25% will progress from NASH to cirrhosis. And again, about 25% of these patients progress to failure of the liver. So you can remember that it takes about 15 to 20 years for the liver disease to develop and fail, means ultimately. But unfortunately, there are certain reports that without cirrhosis developing, fatty liver disease patients can go to hepatocellular carcinoma, that is a liver cancer. So this has to be prevented. Next, let's understand how common is this fatty liver. See, it's actually varies from country to country, and in the country also from different regions. On an average, about almost up to one third of the world population on an average has got fatty liver. It may vary from 10% in few countries to 40% in a few countries. Let us understand in India what is the prevalence. See, there have been studies which have been done in various parts of the countries. Actually, in Western India, it's about 10 to 16%. In Eastern India, it's about 25%. In South India, it is about 32%. And in a Punjab study was done in the North India, where it is 53%. So you can see that in India itself, the variation is from about 10 to 53%. So on an average, if you take, maybe about 25 to 30% of the Indian population has got fatty liver. So you can imagine the magnitude of the problem. So one third of the population, okay, let us take, even if it is not one third, 1/4. If it is 1/4 of the population, you can just imagine the amount of people who have got fatty liver disease. Another thing is, nowadays people have become very aware and get lot of health checkups done. When you do a health checkup, ultrasound is part of the package. You see that the patient, the report will come as fatty liver disease, and then that's why the pickup also has increased. So now we understood what is the incidence of fatty liver and also what are the consequences. Then the next thing is, also we need to understand a little bit of the pathogenesis, why it happens. See, why does the fat accumulate in the liver? It's actually, it's like always a balance between the amount of fat which goes to the liver and amount of fat which gets metabolized. So either it has to be increased generation in the liver, or it has to be increased intake. So the worst thing is taking of junk food, eating a lot of fried items, eating a lot of red meat, and more importantly, the worst offender is this aerated beverages. So these are they contain a lot of sugary beverages, then excess consumption of fructose, excess consumption of red meat, and oily items. These are the main culprits which increase the accumulation of fat in the liver. And obviously, one is the extrinsic factor. Second is intrinsic, if there is too much of fat in the body also, that also gets deposited in the liver. Second thing is, it's not only the intake, it's the expenditure. Somebody who is sedentary, does not do any physical activity, is more prone to fatty liver disease. So it's a sort of a disease because of lack of exercise and excess intake of bad food items. So as we discussed, so once the fat accumulates in the liver, slowly, few of them, about between 8 to 25% of them develop inflammation in the liver called NASH. Again, there are so many factors involved in this. It could be hereditary factors, or it could be lack of exercise, where they develop inflammation in the liver, and which can progress to cirrhosis, and which can again progress to liver failure and liver cancer. So how do we know whether the person who has got fatty liver has got a risk of developing cirrhosis, or whether he has already developed cirrhosis? See, this commonly what one does is this liver function test and ultrasound. Please do not assume that the liver functions are normal means there is no problem. See, it's actually liver functions is just a very poor indicator of the overall functioning of, structure and functioning of the liver. What is important is whether there is something called as a fibrosis in the liver or not, because liver has got such a wonderful capacity to work well that up to 80% of the liver, even up to 80% of the liver is damaged, the liver functions can misleadingly look normal. Okay, and suddenly you might see, like over few months, once it deteriorates, the liver functions fall very badly. So just looking at that liver functions normal doesn't mean patient is totally normal. So here actually we have to look at two things. One, if there is an inflammation or no inflammation. In that the liver functions that we call as transaminases, SGOT and SGPT. If there is inflammation in the liver, they are elevated. So this actually means that there is NASH. Probably there is NASH, but here there is a caveat. Just because patient has got fatty liver on ultrasound and has got SGOT, SGPT elevation does not always mean it is only fatty liver which is responsible for that. But always see that there are no other etiological factors like viral infections, especially commonly hepatitis B, hepatitis C, other like conditions like lack of this ceruloplasmin, autoimmune hepatitis, just to name a few, before we label it as NASH. So one aspect is the inflammation. Second aspect is the liver stiffness. See, previously we used to think of always doing a biopsy. Even now, if one goes for studies, like where they do trial of medications, the gold standard is liver biopsy, but it is an invasive procedure. But nowadays, especially in both our centers, whether it is our clinic in Artinagar or in Manipal, what we do is the non-invasive markers of stiffness by what is called as fibroscan. This will tell us about the fibrosis or the stiffness. If there is fibrosis because of NASH, there is a progression to cirrhosis. It can happen even if the the liver enzymes are normal. See, because this inflammation in the liver can be intermittent. Few occasions the liver's enzymes may be abnormal, and sometimes it can be little quiescent. So patients with elevated enzymes are more likely to have fibrosis, but that does not mean just because LFT is normal on one occasion the liver is normal. So always it is better that we evaluate both the liver functioning for the transaminases and also for the liver stiffness with fibroscan. There are other markers, other non-invasive. See, invasive is liver biopsy, where we put a needle into the liver, take a biopsy, where there is a risk of bleeding. It can be minimal, but even then, if there are non-invasive markers, we always prefer non-invasive markers. But when there is ambiguity, we always prefer liver biopsy. So the commonest and the best method is fibroscan, but there are other good methods like MR elastography. There are other, even some certain blood parameters, there are scores we determine, or there is a blood test called as fibro test. See, these are all the ways of determining whether there is an increased liver stiffness and increased chances of cirrhosis. There we again classify it as F0 to F4. F0 is like where this liver is normal, and depending upon the grade of stiffness of the liver, we call it as F1 to F4. F4 means already cirrhosis is already established. So now we understood that how common is the fatty liver. Second, what are the consequences of fatty liver. Third, how to assess the liver. By functioning, ruling out other causes, and also understanding whether the patient has got cirrhosis or no cirrhosis. Now let us see how do we manage these patients. How do we manage? See, it's always strategy is to first understand where does the patient stand, whether he's got only simple fatty liver, or he's got fatty liver with inflammation, or he's already developed cirrhosis, or decompensation. Decompensation means where the liver has failed. How do we know whether the liver has failed? There are 4 or 5 things. Patients can develop jaundice. Patient can develop accumulation of water in the abdomen called ascites. They can have bleeding from the stomach or the intestine, where they present with the vomiting of blood, or they pass black stools or red stools, or sometimes they lose consciousness, or their behavior alters. We call it as hepatic encephalopathy, or alternatively even the kidney functions can get altered because of the liver disease. We call it as hepatorenal syndrome. These are the various manifestations of failure of the liver. So first, before we manage the patient, we should understand where he fits in. So let's discuss about fatty liver, simple fatty liver. So simple fatty liver, in fact, what I'm going to tell for fatty liver, simple fatty liver, applies to all the stages. See, fatty liver always, there are 2 things, diet and exercise. In fact, when I was talking about the diet, in fact, I discussed that the main things are stop aerated beverages, that's sugary drinks, stop reduce fructose intake, reduce red meat intake, and second thing, no fried items. And the next thing is always eat small quantity more often and hypocaloric diet. See, you should always give a diet of about 1200 to 1600 kilocalories per day, depending upon the how much weight loss we want the patient to lose. Then second thing is exercise. Most important is exercise. Only diet will not help, only exercise will not help. It's always a combination of both exercise and diet. About 45 minutes of exercise is very important. Yet again the question comes, what type of exercise? Always do a combination. Do some a simple isometric exercise like walking, and at the same time also try to give some muscle muscle building exercise, because what happens during the liver disease progression, always muscle mass goes. So we have to do some weight lifting, weight training, to see that our muscle mass also remains. So what type of exercises are important? Then thing comes like, is there evidence whether that diet and exercise helps? Yes, there is a lot of evidence to say. In fact, patients who have significant fibrosis, if they lose 10% of the weight, 40 to 45% they can have reversal of fibrosis. See, previously, like when we were reading MBBS, we were told cirrhosis is an irreversible process. But we have understood now, as long as the etiologic factor is taken care of, cirrhosis is also reversible. So, as you understand, 10% of weight loss in 1 year can reverse fibrosis in up to 45% of the people. So, the first take home point is weight loss, diet, exercise for fatty liver. For other stages, like where there is a significant fibrosis, this applies. The diet and exercise applies whether there is fibrosis or no fibrosis. So this is compulsory. But patients who already have established fibrosis do have good medications. See, there are certain medications which are coming up, but still I cannot say that like what we have for hepatitis C or hepatitis B, we got a curative medications. No, not yet, unfortunately. But there are medications which are very, very promising, and maybe in a year or two we will have a lot of such medications. Out of the medications, which have been shown to be useful, or one is vitamin E, about 400 to 800 international units per day. Second thing is there are certain diabetic medications like pioglitazone. Pioglitazone, actually we use it for non-diabetic fatty liver disease also. Others, as I said, majority of the patients are diabetic patients. A medication called liraglutide is also useful. Metformin is also useful. They're useful, but they are not shown significant reversal of fibrosis. There are two promising medications. One medication, in fact, I would be proud to say, it has been discovered by an Indian company, and it is undergoing trials all over the world. And in fact, it is approved in India, but for patients who do not have cirrhosis. This is called saroglitazar. So the saroglitazar has been doing pretty well, and I think quite a few of us are happy at the way saroglitazar has worked. Then there is another medication called as obeticholic acid, which is coming in a big way. In fact, there are some trials which have shown that fibrosis can be reversed. But there are some side effects of these medications like pruritus, that's itching, which is still preventing us to use it. And another thing is, it also produces imbalance the cholesterol. It worsens the bad cholesterol and decreases the good cholesterol. See, maybe we'll have to add some medications to counteract this side effect. But there are some two big trials called the control trial and reverse trial, which are going, which results will be available next year, which will tell us whether this can reverse cirrhosis. At present, anti-diabetic medications which we mentioned, maybe saroglitazar, obeticholic acid in a few patients. This is in addition the most important thing, that is diet and exercise. I hope my talk was useful. Thank you.